It's a live show.
Are we on?
I believe we are.
Right about on time.
Just about, man. Perfect timing. Hey, everybody, this is the Jimmy Doane Show. We do this live twice a week right here on Facebook, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday and Wednesday, for your pleasure. And I will post a timestamp copy of this show up, most likely, tonight. On YouTube and Twitter. You just gotta search for Jimmy Doane, D-O-A-N-E, and find us there. Also, today is the 29th day of April, and we are coming in hot. What is happening, Dr. Doane?
Okay, well, before we get to the only news that is news.
The only news.
Before we get to that, I got one little thing. It'll be kind of interesting to see. We've talked a little bit about Kim Jong Un.
Yes.
And is he dead?
Yes.
Is he comatose? Is he? And there are conflicting reports everywhere. Do you believe the South Koreans? Do you believe our intelligence and so forth? Well, apparently the latest, as of, is that our satellite images have shown that Kim Jong Un may be at his very private and protected luxury villa.
Right, because on the coast or something?
Yeah, on the coast, right. And apparently there are, like, all the luxury yachts that he owns are guarding it. And so that's the satellite is, we've talked about a little bit about this before, because in trying to divine what he's doing, you have to take all these things that aren't exactly him. In other words, the satellite doesn't pick him up.
Right.
It's all the stuff that's around him.
How many caravans can you put out there?
Exactly. So anyway, the latest one was, guess what? There's a whole bunch of yachts that are his yacht entourage or whatever around this very secretive place and so forth, and that's maybe where he's sort of hanging out.
Well, it would make sense if he were gravely ill or even moderately ill that they would sequester him away, because of course their whole cult of personality thing is that he's so virile, he eats coronavirus for breakfast.
That's right.
Kind of trounced it in the day, and now they're just making antibodies from his blood because it's so pure and something like that.
Well, it's interesting because the tyrannical leaders, Mao Zedong, for instance, once swam across the Yangtze River or whatever it was.
Like upstream or something.
Against the thing, right? and of course, Putin is always shown with bare-chested on a horse, and I'm going to ride into the sunset or out of the sunset or whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it. That maintains the.
That's it. He's up there. He has personally vanquished the coronavirus, and now what he's doing is he's attending to the physicians that were attending to him originally, and making, because he's a medical genius, and
right.
So he's taking care of them, and once he gets that all set up, then they'll go back.
So anyway, that's the
or he dies and his sister takes over next week.
Okay, well that's a little bit of the Korea, exactly. Well, yeah. Okay. Next thing, we talked a little bit about the doctors, the two doctors.
The two doctors. We didn't mention those yet here, I don't think.
Okay. Oh, we didn't. Okay.
No.
Well, you've seen the video now. Okay. This
is the two Bakersfield doctors.
Two Bakersfield doctors, and what's fascinating is they came out and they put this thing on YouTube or whatever. After 5 million views, YouTube pulled it.
Yeah.
It was still available, I think, in
Twitter,
whatever, it was still available. The point was that for some reason YouTube considered this fake news or something, and they pulled it. Now, there were some people that came out and said, and one of the things that did happen was that right away, two major, huge organizations came out and said, you can't believe these guys.
Everything those guys just said is bullshit.
Bullshit, that's right.
That's right.
So anyway, that's it. So anyway, and there were responsible, upstanding type people that thought it was BS.
Right.
And they said, this is what happens when you get these so-called doctors who do a little more. One of the things you have to do, and I was very disappointed in Scott Adams in this. Apparently, he didn't do a little research. He has a 48-hour rule. Well, he didn't go this time.
Yeah.
So he jumped in there and said these guys were at first. Said he didn't believe it. He called bullshit.
Right.
He called bullshit on them. Well, since then, it turns out that maybe not so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, here, what we know is that you can't trust any damn thing. I mean, that's the rule these days, is if you see it and it looks like somebody's telling you something, you use the old half of what you see, none of what you hear rule, and you'll be pretty good. And so, I mean, that's my general approach to it. But what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that lately I've seen some pieces that came up and said these guys were spot on, and that they did know what they were talking about, and they had 40 years experience in immunology and ER and everything between them,
right?
And they have a special clinic that deals in this kind of stuff. And of course, other people were saying, well, they're trying to drive people to their clinic. Well, no, I mean, you're going to drive. This is in California. What, are you going to drive from Omaha, Nebraska to California to see what?
Well, I mean, look, I'm with you. It doesn't seem to me. Look, okay. My first question was, are they actors? You know, was this a stage?
It's pretty obvious they're not.
They're not. Okay, so
they're real, live, experienced doctors.
Okay, and that was my conclusion after watching it as well. And from there, then you have to ask yourself, all right, well, do they have any particularized interest?
Pecuniary interest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the question is, they mentioned their accelerated, which is the name of their group or whatever
right.
it is. Okay, so does accelerated benefit if everybody goes back to what they were doing? I guess they run a couple of emergency clinics, and so their business is way down, and they're furloughing doctors because of that or something. And so, okay, so you go out and you promote your thing, but to me, that's not any more spurious than the people who are the head of these organizations,
right.
like the WHO and even the CDC. And look, here's the thing: if you're in any big organization and you're a doctor and you're speaking for the organization, to me that's like, okay, right away, you know the organization has a narrative that they have to stick to, and the reason they do that is for liability purposes, so they don't get their asses sued. And you got to figure that the guys in those big organizations, if I were their attorney, I would say, look, definitely err on the side of caution, because you can't get sued for that. You can't get sued for telling people, hey, it's probably a good idea to wear a mask and stay at home and don't touch people and things and stuff. But if you say, no, it's fine, go on out there, that clip may be featured in your jury selection when they're trying to figure out if they can get some money from you. And if you've got a big multinational corporation with $100 million or some kind, or $100 billion as some of these people have, that's a big cherry pie to freaking go after, that you know they have insurance to beat the band. All it would take is a well crafted and drafted complaint to maybe warrant a little payout, even if there's no merit to it. And so I'm suspect of all the people that are in those big organizations, in those big positions, as much as I am the average doctor who may have.
What's interesting is, when you look at the biggest podium, of course, is Trump.
Right.
And how many people don't believe a word he says? I mean, a lot of people are calling him out all over the place. I mean,
well, look, he obviously he speaks off the cuff. He
right.
rambles.
But my point is, like, as you say, big organizations. This doesn't get much bigger than the United States, and of course, even down here, our mayor speaks for the city. No. I'm sorry, you don't. You certainly don't speak for me, but he's got the podium. He's got
and whatever he says, he is speaking for the city from the standpoint of, it's going to be city approved. That is to say, he's not going to come out and say, no. They want me to tell you don't go out, but go on out. And he's not going to say anything.
No, he's not. But the other thing is that there are a rising chorus of people who are saying that you're defeating the purpose of the immunology by staying home. Yeah. You're not allowing your body to get the antibodies and everything, and in fact, you're going to be worse off. One of the things that I saw this thing, the guy says, kids, and I was one of them. You go out when you're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. You go out and eat dirt. You eat dirt, and you think it's just funny. Well, that's what part of building up your antibodies.
Yeah,
I mean that's even if you get sick, your body says, "Ooh, this is a new one.
Yeah,
I'm going to figure this out."
Well, it was news to me that your body creates these new antibodies and replenishes them on a daily basis.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's what one of those doctors said.
Okay.
And I knew they were in your body, and I didn't realize they were that currently refreshed.
Well, one of the things, just as an aside, the research in the last maybe 10 years max has been on your gut.
Yeah.
And I mean, 15 years ago, nobody had a clue.
No.
Nobody had a clue what was in your gut.
Yeah.
And it turns out that is probably one of the most important things you can have in your body, because it communicates directly with your brain on so many levels. And there's like a jillion different types of microbes in your gut that all are, either in concert or not in concert or whatever it is.
Competition or who knows.
Who knows? That's the whole thing. Who knows?
Well, right, and that's why you come back to this at the end of the day. We're still in a little bit of unknown territory on the data, but we're out of the fear zone. And so, from my perspective, it really doesn't matter if you believe these doctors or not, or Fauci or whatever. It doesn't matter what you believe. Guess what? This weekend, we're open. It's open. Everybody's going back because there's enough anecdotal evidence, at least on both sides, so that both sides can cite a doctor or a scientist or science in general and claim, look, this guy says wear masks. This guy says masks don't work. This guy says social distance. These people say it doesn't work. It's just back and forth and all over the place. What we do know now is that the death rate is certainly not anything like 10%. Yeah. It's probably not even a whole percentage.
Right.
And as these guys suggested, it may even be less than the flu overall, unless you have particularized conditions like diabetes and things like that.
Well, it was interesting that speaking of that, there was a fellow who was in one of these, hospice. Cancer. Mm-hmm. He died. Mm-hmm. They attributed it to the coronavirus. Now, the problem was, he had an insurance policy that covered cancer.
Oh shit!
But not the COVID thing.
Right.
So the insurance company said, "Well, no. Here it is, right here on the thing. It says here you died from something. We're not going to pay $250,000, whatever." And of course, needless to say, the attorneys have said, "God, give it a rest." He'd been in there for 30 days, for God's sakes, strictly for this. So anyway, the point being that this is the kind of stuff. Yeah, that's going to come out, and the attorneys are going to have a field day.
Well, right. Well, we've seen a couple of things with that. Like you said, I've heard reports that hospitals get paid more if they have more coronavirus patients, and so therefore people are being classified as that erroneously. I mean, It's hard to imagine if you're the guy right there on the spot that you don't know what the proximate cause is. Like, okay, yeah, they've had diabetes, but they've had that for 20 years, and now they get COVID and they die. Well, yeah, it's COVID. Yeah, it's diabetes, but it's COVID. I mean, so what do you put? Both? Hyphen? I mean, sure.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
But complicated by COVID.
Right.
By diabetes complicated.
Exactly. Look, I mean, I don't know how they do all their coding and everything, and you got to know there's shenanigans in terms of the payouts.
Yeah, the coding is a nightmare too. Have you ever seen the coding books?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I used to sue insurance companies, but anyway, at the end of the day, though, the fear is gone, and people are going back out, and whatever numbers come in from here, whatever they are.
You can say, well, I don't think it's certainly not going to, I don't believe, have the watershed this weekend by a long shot. Yes, you do. Yeah. No, and here's the reason why. In this last weekend, just passed here a couple days ago, beach crowds lead California to step up enforcement of the virus restrictions.
Yeah.
They will step up enforcement, more cops, related public health restrictions after crowds jammed the beaches over the weekend. The governor, Newsom, said on Monday, where was this? He said on Monday, where was it? Here it's Monday. Let me put this in here. Said on Monday, the crowds put the risk of the state's progress in slowing down the advance of the novel coronavirus and could delay loosening of restrictions that was just weeks away, he said. The police are issuing fines. Mm-hmm. In one place in Lake Tahoe, the beach fines are $1,000. Oh. You get a ticket for $1,000, and Alameda County also. And of course, one of the things is you've got to ask is, does this guy have any real? I mean, who's going to pay? You're going to go into court. Of course, it's closed right now, but eventually you're going to go to court and say, this is an Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual. I mean, I'm walking on the beach, and this guy comes up in his, cops come up, gun armed and everything like. Oh, that was the other. That was I saw there was a little YouTube video or whatever of the cops on the beaches. I think it might have been in California. They're on horseback, and they were rousting this elderly couple. Now they only didn't show the whole video, but they showed the cop riding up, the sheriff, whatever was riding up, and the older guy gets up, and his wife's they're in chairs, and they're sitting there saying, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah,
and they said, "Well, you're sitting. You can't do this." He's on a horse, a big guy.
Sitting down, Grandpa. Look, we've seen Anecdotes roll out dozens of them, and all we can hope, fingers crossed, is that these are just that, anecdotes. We hope that this is not the norm. These are the outliers, which is why we're seeing them pop up on YouTube. And in most places, I'm hoping, again,
hope
your favorite business plan.
Yeah, no, I hope it's not a business plan.
And
we expect that this is going to all go away.
Well, we know it's going to go away.
Yeah. So.
What we're hoping is that it's not widespread right now. It will go away, although I have to comment on something I've been predicting for the last few weeks.
Okay.
I've been saying that the federal government is at some point going to pass a blanket protection for the states and say, look, it doesn't matter if the state wrecked your business or whatever happened, you can't sue.
I don't see how they can do that.
Well, like I said, they can do...
They can do anything. I know that. Yeah. I realize that. But I mean, that is no way going to stand up. The states are independent.
Well, it doesn't matter because they're not doing that. In fact, they're going to do the opposite.
Really?
Trump. I forgot how contentious Trump and his DOJ are, and they came out and said, "Look, if we say you're open, you're open."
I see.
And,
okay.
And then if you're, because we're the federal authorities on this issue, and so if you then after that close states, governors, then you are going to be subject to potential civil rights violations, not only from the citizens, but from the DOJ.
Okay, so that it then does become a federal complaint.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and that makes sense because the feds have always sort of been the authority on what the Constitution says, and they've sort of pulled the states along.
Yeah, well, they have, yeah, ever since the 14th Amendment.
Yeah, and
sure.
so that makes sense. Now, also, though, I think there's going to be protections in place so that you can't sue your boss when you go back to work and you get COVID. Because that
really,
yeah, because it's going to be. I think there's going to be some of that coming from the state. Anyway, that's more speculation. But I wanted to point out that the feds have stepped in terms of the governor's reactions.
Okay,
so.
well that would be interesting to see. As I say, this today, you see, I would be changing my sign on the bus that says injured. Call so and so.
Right. COVID.
Call me.
Exactly.
I would certainly have my billboards changed tomorrow.
The problem is the how do you trace the contact and the causation?
You make it up.
Well, and that's what you could do.
Yeah.
But there's so much. Yeah. There seems like there's a lot of wiggle room there. So.
Right. Well, then there's wiggle room.
And let's litigate.
That's it. That's exactly right. No, I just think that it's interesting that. One of the things that's going to happen is when you realize the number of jurisdictions, there's 3,300 counties in the United States, and there's got to be, I don't know how many cities, a million, and they all have sheriffs, or the counties all have sheriffs, and how many of them have decided that to enforce the COVID restrictions or whatever, and you only have to have 1,000 of them decide to send their guys out there to start a revenue, a little revenue enhancement. It's like a speeding ticket. I mean, give me a break. You're
1,000 for you,
1,000 for right, exactly.
You.
And then, go ahead, sue me. That kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and of course the cop and the city is not going to get sued for that.
No,
like you said, when they get into court, is the judge going to be like, anybody with COVID tickets, come on up. Okay, you're all dismissed.
Yeah. Well,
and I expect it to go.
I would think that any reasonable judge would do that.
Yeah, and I expect that to happen more often than the opposite, which will be now you have court costs, sir.
Yeah.
And,
right.
And additional,
Yeah. Yeah, you're
1,000 wasn't good enough for you, huh?
That's right. No, you're completely exonerated. You don't have to pay the $1,000. We got $400 in court costs.
Well, that we know is going to happen.
We know
yeah, that's
right. That's it exactly. And of course, it's all done by TV. It's done by Zoom.
Yeah.
So,
well,
whatever. Okay. The next thing we've had, again, this is another result.
Totally exonerated.
Yeah, totally exonerated, except
Court
for court
costs.
costs. Holy God, this is the headline. Holy God, we're about to lose everything. Pandemic crushes over-leveraged Airbnb Super-Hosts. Now, one of the things that's interesting...
Super-Hosts?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what this is. Glad you asked. It turns out that, as you would expect, much like they did during down in Miami when the condos started going up, people were optioning 4 and 5 and 6 condos, and what they would do is before closing they would turn them over to somebody else and collect the difference. And of course what happened was when the real estate market crashed, these guys you couldn't make the payments. So Airbnb people, a lot of what they've done is they've gone and actually bought apartments. This Airbnb, as you well know, is supposed to be your home.
Yeah.
And you basically you rent out a room or something like. Well, a lot of people have taken advantage of it in a different way, and they've gone out and gotten a whole bunch of houses. See, it's called the super.
Boy, that's speculative.
I know it is, and as what's happened is since the Airbnb basis has basically dried up. This one guy says that his monthly nut was $22,000 in mortgage payments and other expenses, and his income dropped $10,000 right away. Yeah. And so he's in trouble, obviously. Yeah. And the what's going to happen? This ripple effect is kind of
bailout. You get your bailout.
Yeah. Well, don't laugh. Apparently, Airbnb has bailed out a couple of people, but it turns out that apparently according to this article, only about 10% of the Airbnbs are what they call super people that have more than one.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. But these are the ones that are in trouble, and these are the ones you're going to hear about now. There's going to be a ripple effect. What are the banks going to do? Are they going to run in there quickly and start to foreclose? I mean, the fact is, if they don't get their payments,
why not?
30 days, 60 days later, you're going to issue a notice, and if there's nobody showing up because of the coronavirus, I mean, people, when you think about it, and traveling these days, Mrs. Jimmy and I were talking about going to see some relatives in another state, and it's going to be like a 2-day drive. Yeah. Well, where do you eat? I mean, they're all, I guess you order out pizza.
We'd like to come into your home to stay for a few days.
Exactly. We'd like to come into your home. The hotels, which hotels are open, which restaurants are open. I mean, one of the pleasures in traveling that we've had is you get to investigate some newer restaurants, some ones that are offbeat, local, and they're not anymore. They're closed. So how do you get over there? And so you do maybe you try and do Airbnb, but if they're not accepting anybody, then you basically sleep in your car and eat.
Well, Airbnb was kind of icky before in that regard, and now it's just taken on a whole new level.
Well, they
take a big crunch out of their overall business.
That's what they said. I mean, it's really it's over $1 billion worth of net worth. It just plummeted, like in 10 days. So I thought that was interesting. They've outtaken mortgages to accommodate their properties to build rental properties and so forth. So I thought that this is the same kind of thing. If you take one of the things about risk, and nothing wrong with people taking risks, but for the big reward, but you got to be prepared for the big downside. Yeah. I mean, you could leverage right now if you wanted to. You could go out and take all of your money and buy gold. Well, what happens if it went down 10% just for a while? You're really screwed. Yeah. And so, anyway, moving along, the next item is the progressive Democrats are calling for essential worker protections in the next stimulus package.
God, already?
That's right. They're working on number 4 or 5, whatever. The Democrats are making a push for hazard pay and new safety protections for workers in the next coronavirus stimulus package to be taken up in Congress. So they're going to talk about it. Lawmakers sent a letter to the leaders of the House and Senate asking for, quote, an essential workers' bill of rights. Now, one of the things that's interesting is people don't realize this. If the government can pass a right, they can take it away. I mean, the rights are those technically in the Constitution that are God-given, not by some legislator. So anyway, here they're going to do a workers' bill of rights in the next stimulus phase. The measures include premium pay for frontline workers. Now you have to decide who's the frontline worker. Is the janitor? Is a frontline worker? I mean, the lady cleaning out the toilet? Yeah. I mean, whatever. Funding for child care and additional protections. Of course, this is another one of those things. That's the additional protections. What do you think? Everybody
for additional?
Yeah, right. for workplace safety whistleblowers. So these are the people that are going to sit there and snitch on their. Well,
there's only 3 of the signs up on the wall in the mandatory sign hanging or distribution area.
Exactly, and so
$10,000 fine.
10,000, right? That's right. Among other asks, it says here. So this is another one of these catch-all for everything. You can imagine this is going to be 1,000 pages or a couple hundred anyway of the Workers' Bill of Rights.
Yeah,
and it's interesting because the Bill of Rights in the Constitution is like 10. Well, it was 10 long, 10 in the Constitution, and this is going to be multiple pages for.
Yeah, and I mean, I wrote a book about your rights, and to me, I think I got it down to five different rights. That's all you get is 5, but then that extrapolates into everything else that you get. But this is. To me, when I've seen recently, like Ayanna Pressley or Ilhan Omar, them coming out and saying, or Bernie saying, well, these tests should be free. And I'm thinking, well, you guys already advocated for free healthcare all the way around. So, what's the difference? I mean, and from my perspective, is there anything that shouldn't be free from their perspective at this point? Because it doesn't seem like it.
No.
I mean, it seems like they want all essential services, everything that you might need, to be free. Housing, rent, food, clothing, everything. Medical, just
haircuts,
whatever. I mean, because you need that to work, and even your apparently, according to Gavin Newsom, even your Uber Eats should be free. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
And so. Then the question becomes, well, what do you have to buy? I mean, it's like they just don't understand at all that profit is an incentive for people to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And the bigger the profit, the more the incentive. And you may not like it.
Well, the more competition.
Well, that's the thing. At some point,
what happens. And I remember years ago. I remember when I was started selling Apple IIs in the late '70s and early '80s, and the profit margin was phenomenal. I mean, they were making these things, and the profit probably was about 50% on what they were selling to us for, and we were making 40%. I mean, these were things that were selling for $2,500. The manufacturing was like $500.
Okay.
Well, it didn't take too long before other people jumped all over it.
Right. Wherever there's a spike in profit,
there was a spike,
it draws
and they said, hell, I can do better than that. And that's what got Dell started,
right.
In his bedroom, for God's sake.
Well, and that's why I've been arguing for letting the price float. Look, if you want the supply to be buoyed, let the price float.
We're talk about that.
Yeah, and the masks and everything. If you don't want people making a profit, get into business against them. Take over, do the competition thing, and make your own cash.
Well, like you said, that guy that when there was somebody that competed with one other guy, and the first guy came in and bought him all out. And so I bought the competition out, and then he went and so he was okay to do whatever pricing he wanted.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night.
Okay, so this along those same lines, a new lawsuit. See, this is what I'm telling you. You need to get the bus. You need to get the bus thing there, the billboards. You need to take down all your injured stuff and everything. Put these up. A new lawsuit accuses retailers like Trader Joe's, Costco, and Walmart of marking up prices on eggs in California.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Well, we've seen the price of eggs is changed around. One thing that I believe this is that eggs are still the cheapest thing on this planet for the nutrition that you got. I mean, you can try. I mean, they're phenomenally cheap for the protein and everything that you can do with eggs. I mean, you can make them taste great. Everything. So anyway, a new class action lawsuit accusing Costco, Trader Joe's, and Walmart. Now, right off the bat, of jacking up the price. Now, one of the things you got here is that Costco and Walmart are in competition. So, are you saying there's collusion between these monster places to jack up the price of eggs? No, you can't get away with that. I mean, these guys if they're selling a jillion eggs a day, they're gonna certainly want to undercut. Don't go across the street to Costco. Come here. Ours are a dime less a dozen, or whatever the hell it is. I mean, the idea that there's collusion on this level. I understand if there's collusion in between two little dorky things or something, or across the street gas station or something, but not this. So anyway, they're blaming it, of course, on the COVID-19. Obviously, the lawsuit was filed in San Francisco federal court and accuses these retailers of inflating the price of eggs during the pandemic. As in any time of economic turmoil, there are those who seek to profit from the misery of millions, the suit reads. Defendants who are producers, wholesalers...
The misery created by the extra dollar they had to shell out for their dozen eggs.
Right, exactly, right. The misery. And compromise one set of actors. That's what I've
been trying to point out. Look, there's price gouging, if you want to call it that, and then there's price chafing, which is mostly what it is.
Yeah.
I heard somebody the other day say that they were thinking of buying a mask for $600. Now this was a Twitter thing. I have no idea whatever it was, and I'm thinking, okay. Like, all you had to do was look around a little bit to get one for $20, all right? And maybe that's not the 20 cents that it used to be, but it's not going to break your bank. Okay, $600, that's a chunk. That's gouging, all right?
But gouging, hey.
Look, the whole point, it's still voluntary.
It's still voluntary.
And the guy didn't do it. So,
of course not.
Right, exactly. So it's like I tell people all the time, look, the gouger is counting on selling the product at the price that people are willing to pay.
Yeah.
So they're just fulfilling a need, and hopefully this whole price thing will shake itself out a little bit. But everybody's been on this nonprofit. Like, look, you want there to be profits because it ensures the continuation of the thing. Mm-hmm. Without that, you get all kinds of bad effects.
Well, and of course, there's, as we've just talked about, you can reach for the huge profits and you get hosed.
Right.
With the Airbnb. I mean, here you are. You've decided, boy, this is a license to steal. I'm going to mortgage up these properties,
right,
and collect all this money per day or whatever it is. And suddenly it goes, but that's what happens. That's
right.
You reach for the stars and kaboom. So anyway, okay, a couple more things here, real quick.
What else you got?
I got a couple things. The health experts, here we go once again. Health experts from Trump, Obama, and Bush administrations want the government to pay $50 a day to self-isolate, like jury duty. You're calling it like jury duty because you get paid. Now I don't know about you, but down here we get paid $10 a day for jury duty, which is you don't even pay for the parking ticket.
Yeah.
I mean for the I think it's $3 a day to. Now I guess you get a little voucher if you go park, so you don't have to actually pay it. Mm-hmm. In a new letter to Congress, bipartisan health experts who worked under these administrations said the U.S. should invest. Okay, not spend.
No, heck no.
Invest $46.5 billion to try and ensure a safe reopening of the economy. Mm-hmm. $12 billion to expand the contact. Now, I thought this was a couple of times people make misspellings mm-hmm. that are telling a little bit. It says to expand the contract tracing workforce. I think what they mean is the contact tracing workforce. That's mm-hmm. what they want to do. The health experts said the number of contract tracing workers need to expand by 180,000. Now, I don't know where they got the 180,000 from, but this is a good. Got this one right out of my butt. So until a vaccine was on the market. So this is 18 months of nice 180,000 people going to get a job. And $4.5 billion would be used to transform vacant hotels into self-isolation facilities for people unable to isolate in their homes. Mm-hmm. Gosh, I don't know. I'm having a problem in my home. I mean,
well, right. That means if you're married or something, they want to get you out of there.
That's it.
They want you to infect your significant other.
Honey, I'll see you later.
That's it. I'm going to a hotel.
That's right. They estimated about 14% of the people needing to self-isolate would require, 14%, they got a number here, this is good, would require such facilities. And they suggested the vacant facilities be used for 18 months, to, as I just said, 18 months. $30 billion to support people whose income who lose income while voluntarily self-isolating. Right. That is to say, if I decide to stay home, I call them up and say, I've decided to stay home.
I was a successful lawyer making $10,000 a day.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm staying home to stop this stuff.
I'm going to need that $10,000.
I'm going to need that. That's right. So So estimated that 40% of the people who come in contact with an infected person would need some sort of supplemental income. So, I mean, I don't mean there's this whole thing here is I'm sitting there thinking this has got to be kind of a joke. It ain't going to happen.
Well, look, they are still running with the ball, man. This is chum in the water. When this thing when the $2 trillion rolled out and everybody realized that there was no opposition to spending anymore, now it's just a question of how fast can we get it through the thing and into law. How much can we spend as fast as we can spend it before everybody wakes up and realizes, oh shit, they're spending money like it's going out of style, and the NBA is getting a bailout.
Right.
The Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, come on, man. Shake Shack and I mean, come on.
Or
man.
how about Shaq?
Yeah, exactly.
He's getting a bailout.
Everybody.
Yeah, for
everybody. I mean, it's look. At the end of the day, it's just ridiculous. But it's here it goes.
Well, I look at it slightly different. I look at it as a giant trough.
Yeah.
With money in it.
Yeah. And
people feed at it, and the trough is suddenly empty. Mm-hmm. Well, let's fill it up again.
Yeah.
And so more people come and feed at, and for every time that you satisfy a couple of the horses or whatever the pigs at the trough, there's a whole new group that feels entitled, and Congress goes right along with it and says, well, now then, let's feed the trough again.
Look, they sold it to us in 1987 or whenever the Chrysler bailout was.
Yeah.
And it's just gotten bigger since then. So
it is, and now it's gotten to the point where literally they
can bail out the entire nation.
Right.
And they claim to have infinite money.
Well,
which they don't. They have infinite dollars.
Right.
They don't have infinite money.
Well, it is interesting to see that they're shocked, mind you, that some prices have gone up.
Yeah.
Shocked that
nobody expected that.
No,
we'll hear that.
Oh, which reminds me, I've got a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
I got my money.
Oh.
Yeah, it showed up today.
Yes, actually, so did mine.
We're all right.
Yes, and I'll tell you, I posted on my Facebook page, if you go on there, for people who haven't gotten theirs yet, there's a way to register yourself so that you can get your cash. So it is coming.
I was blown away. I went in there and I thought, dang, and of course it vaporized.
No.
Yeah, I have bills that I have medical bills, you know. Anyway, I just thought this kind of interesting. So anyway, the next thing that I saw here, again, a coronavirus thing. Sunday, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas echoed the memo, charging that China's leaders wanted the virus to spread because they did not want to see their relative power and standing in the world decline. So he's talking, and the latest conspiracy theory is that the Chinese seeded with Chinese people, the West Coast and the East Coast, to spread the virus. And now, of course, biggest in the world.
Yeah.
And of course, our economy has done exactly what they, we knew it. We didn't know this was going to happen, and so the economy's collapsing, and they're laughing over there in Peking or Beijing, and I thought it was so. Anyway, as far as he's concerned, this was a plot,
it's an attack.
And he says, it's a scandal to me that if we train so many Chinese communists. If the Chinese students want to come here and learn Shakespeare, that's fine. They can learn that from America. But they don't need to learn quantum computing and artificial intelligence. Now, one of the things I did see today was where Scott Adams, whom we like to listen to, is way off base. He says, ship them all home. Round them up. Well, if they're here getting an education, all Chinese go home.
He admits that he has a personal bias because of his stepson.
Right.
So, look, anybody who's calling for a deglobalization isn't thinking clearly from my perspective, because the entire point of deglobalization is the expansion of the trading circle,
right,
and the ability to capitalize on specialization of labor,
right,
and without those things, the wealth is just going to be entirely different. It's
well, there is, as they say, you have there are certain places that have a natural advantage. You're certainly not going to raise, Southern California wine grapes in the Alaska.
Right.
I mean, without a lot of money, and that's stupid.
You want both those things in the trading circle.
Right, because you can trade snow.
Yeah. Well, and also, look, what we know, you don't like communist China, but what people don't maybe not realize is that there's a whole bunch of private business in China, and the percentage of private business in China has been growing rapidly. And that's because of what we do and how we trade with them. And that is the way to pull them away from communism. It's to draw them into capitalism, one capitalist at a time.
Yeah.
And by having the trade, and it's okay to train these people and whatever, because as long as you're not giving away national secrets about.
Well, unless you have now, there is one thing you can do, and that is you can become a chauffeur for somebody in the Senate for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're right close to the powers that be and then you go back to China and say, "Oh, I tell you."
Yeah. Well, look, in terms of the conspiracy that it was all launched by the Chinese and whatever, maybe. You never know. They're certainly capable of that. From my perspective.
So are we.
Well, of course. That's what I mean. If we're capable, look, humans are capable of that, okay? They're humans, right?
Yeah.
So they're capable of that. And from my perspective, I think if I had to roll the dice, I would say that this virus did come from the lab. From everything I know, I would say it came from the lab. Now, whether it came on purpose from the lab,
I don't think so.
No,
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
I give it, a better than 50-50 shot that it came out of a lab.
Right,
Okay,
and I don't mean engineered. I mean just came
got
from
loose.
There. Exactly.
There it goes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so yeah, okay. So, but I think that China had a lot to lose from this particular situation, especially if we were to figure it out. I mean, can you imagine? If we were to pinpoint that it was in fact like these dissidents were sent from Wuhan to the various corners of the globe specifically to infect, like, oh, we got somebody going to DC, we got somebody going to Moscow, and they're going to just go and sneeze their faces off, and they're going to go to big public events, and I mean,
started in Italy.
Yeah, sure, and well, because they're
the whole world,
the capital
whole world, right? Well, the thing about it is, you can imagine, as we see this kind of stuff here with our glorious leaders, they're looking for all kinds of conspiracies, but you got to ask, what's their reason for doing this? Because they like to instill fear in people, and even, in other words, if they were to find, like the Russia thing, we find this dossier. Mm-hmm. This is the smoking gun. Well, it's bullshit. I mean, it's bullshit. Yeah. We found the 5 Chinese people that came here and started the thing. I'd sit there, no, you didn't.
Right.
I'm sorry, you idiot.
Well, and look, I'm not even going to say that the people who are trying to investigate that are disingenuous about it. I mean, they're just gonna.
They're getting paid to do it.
Well, and maybe so. Yeah, and it's hard to tamp down that bias.
They're getting paid to do it. Look. You ask. This is another thing that we've talked about: the climate change and other things. If you are on the government payroll to prove a certain particular item, you're going to prove it. Yeah, you're going to find a way to do it. It's just otherwise you lose your job.
And you probably got there because you were already proving it.
Well, you were certainly willing a participant in the particular thing. I mean, I remember again so often here before we locally here. There was a golf course here that was owned by the city, and it was losing its ass. It was losing money. So they hired for this is back 25 years ago, they hired a organization, a consulting group that did this sort of thing from South Florida. They came up here, they spent $100,000, and they came up with a thing about this big and said, yep, don't worry about it. You can make money, and this is the way you can rearrange it, and you can make money on this thing. And in fact, you'll be in the black within 24 months.
And now it's successful, profitable golf course.
In fact, no.
Resort.
In fact, what happened was it was
attraction from the region.
It went just the opposite. And of course, in order to avoid
Competes with Disney World.
shame, they folded. It was a line item on you could actually see it
right
on your line item on your taxes. Well, they folded it into the general fund.
Oh, okay.
So now you didn't know it was just an expense.
Right.
And by any stretch of the imagination, it still loses its butt. But I was one of the people that said, this thing is bogus. Of course they came out and said it's okay. They were paid to do that.
Right.
They were never going to get another consulting assignment if they came up and said, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And so turns out you couldn't do it. It was all bogus. And if they knew which side of the bread their butter was on. And this is the kind of thing that especially government people do, is they've got to justify what they do. And it's never wrong. I just
redid a study,
and then what they do is they hide it. We're going to fold it into the general fund. I'm thinking you could sell it tomorrow, get rid of it. Somebody else can take the blame. So, at any rate, this virus, of course, is giving every tin pot dictator a handle to do something. And as I say, they've got guns. I mean, as I say, what's going to happen? You're talking about this weekend. I'm still wondering how many armed deputies are going to be riding the beaches, ordering people off.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it will be. So, okay. Now, the last thing I've got is our friend Mayor Bill DeBlasio. He appoints his wife head of the coronavirus racial inequality task force. Now, one of the things that's interesting is task force. The Trump administration is setting up 4 or 5 task forces. These are smart people. I mean, these are the top men. That's right, top men. To these task force. You're tasked with this. Top men and women of color and trans. I mean, nobody's excluded from this. I mean, as Biden says, I'm going to exclude men from the vice president, but
your gender will not make a difference.
No, that's right. Won't make a difference. Everybody's open except men. And of course, who's campaigning like crazy is Stacey Adams.
Yeah.
Or Stacey Abrams. Is it Abrams? Abrams, okay, from Georgia. Yeah, she's campaigning like crazy to be the vice president. We'll see what happens. Anyways, the Bill de Blasio says he wants to make sure, quote, to make sure that New York City rebounds as a better and more just society than the one we left behind. So he and his wife and her task force are going to make New York City, 8 million people, a better place.
Sure.
Yeah. He added he believes that it will take 20 months, he says, to fully rebuild New York City. This is really, I mean, this guy, you talk about an ego. I love it.
Well, what else is he going to say? I mean, he's got to come out and say something. And you got to know that the super progressives are going to try as the super... I know as a libertarian, I'm thinking, hey, I hope we make some inroads based on this. But of course, I'm thinking of the opposite way from the socialists. From my perspective, freedom is the way to go right now, and the more we get of it, the better. And everything from price freedom to licensing freedom. There's a bunch of different things that could be helping us now. And we'll see how many of them get opened up when things start to get back to normal.
Closed up right again.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's forces obviously acting both ways. Now, you mentioned Biden. I think we have to bring up a couple of things about Biden.
Okay.
First, there's the Tara Reade allegations.
Now, the question is, okay, go ahead.
Well, they're gaining some traction because there was the video that came out with Larry King where her mom calls in and apparently is...
This was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
okay.
But the point is that it's corroborating evidence. And apparently she told some neighbors and such like that. So we'll see. But the Democrats are still all in on Biden as Hillary Clinton comes out and endorses Joe this week. Meanwhile, Joe is following the plan that we advised him to take, which is
go hide.
Exactly.
Okay.
Go into the damn basement and don't say a damn thing. And it's now the right is making the most of it. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the video of him going with the tongue.
Oh,
it's hilarious. And then there's the one with him and the wife speaking.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And the wife does all the speaking. And I mean, that's not the kind of video, that's not what you do, man. You get him in there and you give him the 30-second soundbite. It's just a speech. Well, he should just be giving a speech to the people who love him. You give him a speech, he goes and gives it to Planned Parenthood or the whatever societies that they love, the school organizations and that kind of stuff, and you just give a super short, we're all in this together kind of thing, and he just memorizes it. It's the same thing every time, pretty much. That's what you do.
Yeah, and called stump speeches.
Yeah, and he's getting through it. He's apparently, according to the polls, which you can't trust at all, he's winning in certain places against Trump, so it may be working for him.
Well, it is kind of interesting because I did see where some of the progressives, there was an ad, I think, put out by the Republicans that showed him stuttering.
Well, yeah.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
The beauty was, they said, you're taking everything out of context. The next thing they did is they showed the whole clip.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. It was like a minute and a half.
And he's just
during the entire whole minute and a half, there was nothing. I mean, he was a blubbering idiot. Yeah. They might have taken it out of context, all right, but and might have been the worst part of it, but the whole thing was, Jesus, I'm not voting for that guy.
Yeah. Well, I think he's still
toast.
Well, I don't know. Now, here's the interesting thing. Have you noticed? They pushed off some of the primaries. And
yeah, well, they did have one yesterday.
Well, they didn't have New York, apparently. Or
no, that's been pushed off.
Okay, now New York's one of the big ones.
Yeah.
And if you'll recall, Biden only has like 1,300 delegates out of the 1,900 that he needs right now.
Oh, is that right?
If they don't hold all of the primaries between now and the convention, he may actually enter the convention without a majority. Even
draft time.
Well, I mean, it's
drafting.
The door is still open, is all I can say. They
That's
have
right.
by pushing back the primaries, they're keeping the
Hillary.
Well, she endorsed Joe.
I know.
Now, so I mean,
that doesn't mean anything.
Well, I mean, how you could you have a switch? You know, you come out and you say, look, okay, we all endorsed Joe, but now we're all going to endorse Hillary. And Joe, we endorsed you, so now you should endorse Hillary.
Look, there's nothing to go past these guys. Give me a break.
No.
Hillary came out and pilloried Obama in 2008, and yet she's for Secretary of State and we're all buddies under the thing and blah, blah, blah. No, these guys, they're all whores. I mean, just the worst kind. And
well, we'll see. I just think it's interesting that's happened.
We're waiting day by day to see how this
not really,
out.
But...
Well, yeah, I mean, every day there's something new. Again, this virus throws everything into a cocked hat because this was comes out of the blue in a way.
Yeah.
Not that again, it's fascinating because it takes a big toll on everything. Now then, let's see. We're gonna have another little thing here. So Biden is like you said. He should hide out.
Yeah.
And do just a little.
30-second promos.
Yeah.
I mean, TikTok, basically. He does it, little TikTok.
Snapchat.
Exactly.
Whatever,
just the super short thing. That way you can't mess it up. And you record it first, for Christ's sake. Nope, take number 12. Nope, take 13. Keep doing it. I mean, that's what you do. You get a perfect one of them. Or you edit it up like everybody else does.
That's right, you edit it up.
Cut out all the stuff. Now, of course, that one would probably get... Well... But what can they do? Exactly.
Yeah, what can you do? No, I mean, so there's a little stutter in there someplace.
That's right. Exactly.
And obviously, right. The glass moves over the side.
That's right. Exactly. But I mean, they have a little field day with that. But I watched. Speaking of the election, I watched one of the Libertarian candidate debates.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
I saw where somebody else announced for the Libertarians.
yeah, Amash has come out. Justin Amash has come out, and the only thing I know about that guy is that he was in some tiff with the president a year ago or something.
Okay.
And now, since then, I've done a little bit of research, and some of his, like, I think he's a UBI guy. And how can you be a UBI guy and trying to get the Libertarian nomination? I mean,
I don't know. Well,
good luck with that. But his competition, I have to say, is not exactly stiff. I mean, we're talking about John McAfee, who is brilliant. I love him, but what a loose cannon that guy is. I mean,
but who's the one that is...
Vermin Supreme?
No. Vermin is...
Kokesh?
No.
The one that's what?
The one who's the head is actually running.
Well, those guys are all running. I mean, the ones that I know are Amash, Justin Amash, who is he's the most insider person because I think he's a representative.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and then you've got there's a judge, there's an administrator. This guy who used to do disaster relief stuff. There's Kokesh, Adam Kokesh, Vermin Supreme, McAfee. Couple other guys.
There's another one. There's another one who's very well known in the podcast arena.
Okay.
And big. I mean, lots of listeners, lots of people, and I should know what his name.
This wasn't all the candidates. This was 12 of them.
Well, this is the one. This particular one is apparently been endorsed by the on high libertarians. Or something. I don't know. Whatever. We'll see. They're probably not going to win.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. They still seem like they have great ideas, but they the people themselves are mostly super fringy type people. I mean, the judge is not, obviously, and there's a couple of people like the administrator and Amash who are all in the system already to the extent that they could be welcomed by the voters, I suspect, I guess. But I don't know that there's that much of incentive.
One of the problems with libertarians is it's like herding cats.
Totally.
I mean, you can't. Everybody. That's the whole idea. Is I'm my own guy.
Right.
I'm independent. Okay.
Right.
I'm independent. Don't tell me what to do.
Well, exactly.
And why did the libertarian cross the road? Shut up.
Get off my lawn.
That's
exactly.
So it's that's the kind of thing that
I agree, and that's how they still come across.
Of course they do. I mean, and of course they're going to be pilloried with, you want whores everywhere on every street corner.
Right, exactly.
You want smoke. You want cocaine in every apartment.
Exactly. One of Vermin Supreme's platform is everybody gets a pony. That's great. And of course, he was actually quite articulate for a guy who wears a boot on his head.
Yeah.
But
he's been around forever.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if they'll gain enough traction to actually pull enough votes away from anybody to make a difference.
Well, it is interesting because on one or two occasions, the third parties have done that.
Yeah.
And
now, right now, all over Twitter, Amash is getting bashed because people are saying that his presence will pull votes away from Donald Trump. To me, I'm thinking, this is a former Tea Party guy. Yeah. If his votes are going to pull, they're saying he's going to pull votes from Biden and help Trump. And from my perspective, if he's a Tea Party guy, I mean, that's on the right. He should be pulling votes from Trump, if anybody.
Let's bash a mash.
Yeah, well, that's what they're doing. Yeah. So it's a total bash fest right now, but I guess we'll see how it turns out.
We got months to go.
Yeah, almost done. One more thing I wanted to bring up real quick. Did you see, there was a headline in The Guardian this week that certain groups are going after Michael Moore for his movie?
Yes. I mean, it was, because we talked a little bit about that, which reminds me, by the way, I did want to mention, and I guess I'll have the two links that we might put in the notes.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, I got one here, but one is you certainly want to see the Michael Moore movie. That's the Planet of the Humans.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've got the link here.
Okay.
And you're going to want that. That's the one that basically trashes completely the climate people. And I mean, and this is from Michael Moore. I mean, this guy's the lefty from Lefty.
Yeah, now, well, it doesn't trash him completely. Because it still agrees that CO2 is the culprit and that there's warming and it's going to kill everybody. Okay. And that the people are the problem. It agrees on a lot of things. But what it says is that all the solutions proposed so far suck.
Right.
Everything like like the green cars, the windmills, the solar, all those things really suck bad because they really actually are supported by financially by the big powers that be, the oil companies.
Look, anytime there's a movement like this, you know you're an idiot if you don't jump on the
grassroots.
Right. Yeah, you don't jump on the bandwagon. No, but that's right. So that is worth seeing. And just the end of it is a little flaky because he doesn't cover nuclear. We've talked about that.
He doesn't cover nuclear. He doesn't cover fusion. He's on Team-Thanos.
Right.
Which is like, what? Wait, what? Team-Thanos.
There was a complete video of that, of her rise and fall, on YouTube.
Who's rise and fall?
Thanos. Isn't that the girl?
No. Thanos is the evil villain from the Avengers movies.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, who was the girl that did the blood thing?
Oh, right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's like something like that. It says Theros or something.
Yeah, right. Theros, right.
Yeah.
There was a complete 1-hour expose on YouTube about her rise and fall.
Yeah.
And of course, she just was an absolute pathological, horrible liar. But again, you know, she was worth $100 billion. That she worth nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And so anyway, but I'm sorry. So forget it.
Thanos is the guy who believes that humans are net negative, that people are net drag on resources, and so his goal is to kill off half the humans.
Look, this is the original Star Trek.
Right.
When we come in here to eliminate the carbon infestation.
That's right. Exactly. That's
the carbon infestation.
This has been covered by every science.
1967.
I know. It's just look, and the bottom line is this: you have to realize humans are an average plus to resources because of their intelligence and because we create technology that amplifies and multiplies our resources, and that's why we have more people on Earth today and more resources than ever before in terms of what we use, consume, what's available, everything. So the film continues with the premise that people are the evil, and it almost supports like a Mao one-child policy. I mean, you could.
That's another thing I see when they talk about eliminating this sort of thing. One of the problems you've got is how do you replenish the old people, and if you're going to cut the population in half, the real problem that you've got is, I mean, how are you going to do it? You're going to end up with people dying off. The fact is you got to have the new young people have got to come up. You've got to have a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay. Now, to be fair, they're not proposing a Thanos-style culling of the herd or anything.
Okay. Well,
what they're saying is that
we're getting it.
Well, what they're saying is we all have to be mindful that we're consuming the resources, and they sort of imply that maybe you wouldn't want to have a big family or use a lot of resources.
There are people today we've seen that are spokespeople said, "I'm not going to have kids."
I know because right, and that's idiotic because you have to realize every additional human adds an intelligence to the universe that is so big and powerful. It could potentially, as we've seen many times, the entire crop yield double because of a certain technique or the new seed or
so the fact is that you're not going to have a child because it's not going to be Einstein or it's going to be
well no, they literally think that there's a finite amount of resources on the earth and that we're using them up and that the more
then what?
Well, it's not. That's not the reality. The reality is we can create more.
Even if you were, what do you think's the problem here?
Well, from their perspective, if we're going to use everything up, it's like one big pizza pie, and we're all just eating at the edges. Then maybe we should come up with some policy whereby, like I said, everybody gets one child or something stupid like that. I mean, that's where it leads to. I mean,
the other thing that leads
they didn't suggest a policy.
Oh, okay.
They made no suggestion as to what to do.
That's not too good. I mean, if you got a problem, how about
you better have it. Exactly.
The thing about it is, even if you cull the herd or however you're going to do it, one child, whatever, so forth, so on. So let's say the population of the world drops from 7.5 billion to 3 billion or whatever. Isn't that nice? Still going to use up the resources. Just take a little longer.
Right. Well, like I said, they're not thinking it all the way through. It's just. They think there's a finite pie. We're all eating at it. The fewer of us, the better. It's almost like the the people who are saying, well, look, the Earth is healing now that the humans aren't out there. Well, okay, sure, but nobody cares if there's nobody there. I mean,
right, exactly. Okay, now the only thing that is you might want to put on there, I've got here the link to the two doctors.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, yeah. All right. We'll put that on there.
Yeah, put that on there because.
Well, everybody's seen it for now, but maybe so.
Well, you say that, but now that we've talked about it, I mean, because there was a fairly substantial blowback on that on these guys.
Oh, they're going after them.
I know they totally are, and even as I say, even as I recall,
I wouldn't be surprised if they get a notice from their boards that their licenses are being investigated.
Something like that, yeah. Because as I say, Scott Adams has done two things now. One, he dissed those people, called it bullshit. And a lot of people pilloried from that. And then he said no, because these two big organizations said the doctors weren't real doctors or whatever it was. He felt vindicated.
Yeah,
and
he's been breaking his rules recently.
I've seen him breaking his own rules. Exactly right. So it's interesting to see how badly, as far as I'm concerned, he broke the rules. And anyway, so the two doctors, the jury is. I'm not sure it's still out, but...
Look, they're expert. If they're real doctors, then you can trust them as much as you can trust Dr. Fauci or Dr. Drew.
That's the other thing, right.
Or anybody else.
Dr. Oz.
Well, whoever.
Dr. Phil.
Well, Phil's not... He's a psychologist.
I know.
Okay. But yeah, the bottom line is these guys are real practicing doctor, immunology people.
ER.
Exactly. So if you can certainly trust them as much as you can trust any other doctor. From my perspective.
Real live experience.
You average it all together and you see, but it doesn't matter anyway because it's over. Sorry, lockdown's over. Everybody's going out. And you know what? People aren't going to wear masks or gloves or anything either. They're going to do that for about a week and then they're going to stop because it hurts. It's a pain. People aren't going to walk around with stuff on their face. It's just not going to happen. So if that's what you want to happen, sorry.
Well, there's still going to be the shamers out there.
For another, by the end of May.
Gone.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. We'll keep you posted on that.
Yeah, that's my prediction.
Okay, good.
All right, well, let's see.
Another one in the can.
Hey.
Do we have an outro?
Yes, we will. Right now. Here we go.
Outro music.
That's right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We will be back at 4 o'clock on Sunday. Come on by, leave us a message.
We'll be in the next month, too.
Oh, yeah, it'll be May.
It'll be May.
So...
When is Cinco de Mayo? Isn't that pretty close?
Well, that's on Cinco de Mayo.
That's right.
But we'll see if people go out and party for that. I bet they will. I mean, the first people to go out are going to be the partiers. Because there are already people who don't feel like they have anything to lose. And usually, kids and...
Well, the way I look at it is if you go downtown here to the Mexican place on the Cinco de Mayo day, you drink it. And that way it cures you.
Yeah, exactly. You splash a bunch of alcohol around.
That's it. Done.
Bathe in tequila.
That's right. That's right.
Thanks for these tracks, Kevin MacLeod. We really appreciate it.
If Pepsi AC will cure it, then tequila will too.
Yeah, you never know. All right. See you soon.